Yo, what up, YouTube gang? I'm Jay Pats, and today we're gonna be breaking down just kind of how to mix your boom bap beats and get them sounding good. Gotten a few inquiries about this, so I figured why not just make a video on it. Let's just jump right into it. Here's the beat that I'm gonna be showing you how I mixed. So yeah, basically just a hard knock-in boom bap beat with a lot of energy. So I'm gonna show you how to achieve that type of sound as well. First things first, let me just say this. One, I'm not a mixing engineer. I'm not a mastering engineer. This is just how I do things. I know people are gonna disagree or agree or whatever it is, but this is just my perspective and that's all I can really offer you. I'm not saying I know everything or how to do everything. This is just my opinion or just how I do things, not even really my opinion. So with that being said, first thing I wanted to address is that in order for your beat to knock well, you need good sound selection. It's just not going to hit right if you don't have the right sound selected. So let me just put that out there first. And with that being said, when I'm mixing a beat, I like to start with the drums. So I'll start with the sound that I kind of want to be the loudest. So a lot of the time in boom bap, the snare might be the loudest thing in the mix. But for me, I like the kick to be knocking like right there with it. So oftentimes I'll actually start with the kick and then bring in the snares. So let's actually first show you the headroom that the beat has when the master isn't on. So if you notice, the track's peaking at negative 7.45 without the mastering gain on there. So what that means is there's that much headroom. There's 7.5 dB of headroom for mixing engineer when they actually get the beat for whatever song gets made over this to master it and get it sounding as good as possible. So personally for me, I always like to leave headroom. A lot of producers don't, and they just have their tracks clipping or just like 1 dB of headroom. In my opinion, if you want the best outcome of the song that gets made with your beat, leave headroom for the mixing and mastering engineer, because they're going to mix the beat anyway and they're going to master it anyway. So I think it's just a good habit to form because that gives them room to do what they professionally do, you know. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, and that's why I like to leave around like 6 dB of headroom. This one's got a little bit extra, but I think that's important and I think it gets overlooked a lot. With this track, I definitely started with the kick. So all I would do is just bring the levels all the way down. You could even start at like nothing and then just start to slowly bring the kick up. For me, I knew that and the snare are going to be the loudest sound, so I didn't want to bring them past a certain level, you know. So I like to think like 8 or 9 dB. So like at the level I had it, it's peaking at 8.7. So then I just bring in the snare and I like find a spot that sounds good for that. So like negative 11 was good for me on this mix. So now let's see what the track's peaking at. And then I had another snare layered in there. It's still only peaking at 9.1. So basically I just start adding in all the drums. I make like a drum bus and I just mix the whole set of drums. So next the hats. Found a level for those that I liked. So you gotta understand it's all just preference. So there's not one way to level your beat. This is just how I like doing it, and I feel like I achieve a good sound that I like. But you could start with whatever. I think a lot of people might probably start with a bass. Like if I'm doing trap beats, I'll a lot of the time start with the 808 and then mix like the kick and then the clapping and all the rest of the drums. But yeah, there's no one way to do this. You need to just figure out which way that is for you. I'm just showing you my technique to this. Then yeah, just add like the rest in, add the crash. Let's just add all the drums because I think you get what I'm saying by this point. So now what you see is that the drums are peaking at negative 8.31, which is still really good. There's a lot of headroom there. So what I do to bring the bass in and see what level I like is just slowly bring it up. Bringing things up from 0 or nothing, like no sound, is really helpful for me just to see the volume that they really should be at and put it into perspective. Yeah, it's like almost there. You don't want the bass to take up too much space because it might make your mix muddy, but you want it to be present, obviously. So hopefully you can kind of hear how things just sound clear. There's nothing that sounds bad together. It all just fits. The levels sound good. Oh yeah, so one thing I wanted to touch on is just making sure that sounds that don't need low end don't have low end in them. So the reason my bass and the drums fit so well together is because I like to make sure I cut out any low end of drum sounds that might have bass. Like a lot of the times crashes or hats might have low end in them just from the mics they were recorded on. If you notice in all my tracks, there's really nothing much going on. EQing is like the most important thing to me. There's a little bit of reverb on the snare. For the most part, all you really need to do is level your tracks well, EQ out frequencies that don't need to be there, and you'll get a good mix in my opinion. So that's basically what I did for all the drums too. Yeah, just took out unnecessary frequencies like you see. That crash, look at that. So you could actually see it on this crash. Look at all that low end there that it doesn't need to be there. That's not a trait of the crash that I want in my beat. You know, you might want it. I don't want that. So keep that in mind too. That's a super important factor that I almost forgot to tell you. And then another thing I often do is make my bass mono. I think that's really important. Other people don't. Some people stereo widen them. Again, there's no rules to this stuff. It's music. Whatever sounds good is good. But that's just what I do. So then what I do once I have the bass and the drums sounding good together, I just bring in the melodies and find a good level for them. And also what I do to find a good level is I sometimes push it too far so I could hear what too loud sounds like. See how that's like overpowering the beat? I do not want that, so let's just pull it back a bit. You could basically hear, I don't know if you're listening with me, but you could hear around this range sounds good, like between the 10 and like 14. It doesn't sound too soft, it doesn't sound too loud, so at that point it's all just preference. Like all of those sounded good to me, you know? Negative 13. And then so when you're dealing with samples, sometimes there's different parts of the song that are softer or louder from each other. So if you notice in the verse chops, it's at a different volume. These are -9, or the change up chops are -13. Let's bring those chops in. See, watch if I have it at -13. That just sounds way softer than the drums compared to this. So you could just tell must have been a section of the song that was just softer that I chopped up for that part. All I really did was kind of by ear just listen, and -9 felt like a good level. Also what you want to do with your melodies is similar to the drums. What I was showing you is taking out some low end of things that don't need low end. I don't really need the bass line from the sample chops because I already did my own bass anyway. So I kind of just filtered out a lot of the low end, so you could see it's cut at 174. That's just another thing to keep in mind. So pretty much at this point we have the whole beat mix, you know, and it's just been leveling and EQing for the most part. Sometimes there might be a filter or reverb or delay, but it's really nothing crazy. Keep in mind the track's gonna get mixed by who's ever actually using it to make a song. So and then I just had that little turnaround, but that's the same level as these chops because they were like from a similar section and they were a similar volume. After that, I just do like effects and rises, and all I really had was this riser. Honestly, didn't put anything on that track. I probably could have used cut out of the low end. So once you get to this point, I mean, you could tell it's just listening. It's using your ears. There's nothing crazy technical, any like wild stuff that I'm doing. It's just really simple and straightforward, and all you got to do is trust your ears. So from this point, obviously you want the track to be loud, right? People think you got to do like all this crazy stuff to get your tracks loud and knocking, and you really don't. You could just put a soft clip on the channel and turn up the gain because you've left yourself all this headroom. So that's exactly what I did. I'm going to show you a few options that I sometimes use, but this is what I'd use on the track. It's just a gentle limiter from Ableton, and I just turned the gain up 14. So I'm going to show you without it and then with it, and you'll see what it's doing. Now with it. And you'll see it's peaking at negative 0.5, and that's perfect for me. That's what I like. Yeah, and it's just super simple and straightforward. I feel like people are always asking like, oh, what do I put on the master? And it's like, bro, you don't need much. Just put a soft clipper on there. And like, you could use any soft clipper really. It doesn't really matter. Here's another option, which is a limiter, which I don't like as much because you'll see if you add in 14 dB of gain, it's going to do a lot more gain reduction. So what's happening when that gain reduction is happening is it's smushing your track down a bit, and I don't personally want to cause 6 dB of gain reduction or compression on my track. So that's the reason I don't do that. You can do that. It's an option. If the sound is right, like I said, then do that. Then I want to show you another option. There's a ton of these mastering consoles or whatever. Honestly, I haven't really used this one, but this is one that I probably will start using. And if you don't know what you're doing in one of these, you can literally just go to a preset that you might have added onto it and then adjust it from there, which is what I did. So like the preset I had didn't have any of this input drive. And I just added 6 dB of it just to get it loud. Then the final one I want to show you that people use a lot is Ozone Elements. And they have like a mastering assistant thing you can use. So whatever suits your ear. I'm not going to talk too much about the mastering stuff, even though I just did, because I'm not a mastering engineer. I'm also not a mix engineer. I'm just showing you my opinion of how I get the beats sounding right. So thank you for checking out the video. Hopefully there was some helpful content in there for you to apply to your own beats. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to just drop a comment and I'll do my best to get it answered. Remember, just don't overthink this stuff. Keep it mad simple. Level your beats, EQ them, and leave some headroom. And then just add a little bit of gain with the soft clipper on the master, and that's all you really need to do to get your beats knocking. So please don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell so that you don't miss another video from me. I'm gonna keep sharing my knowledge and just growing together so we can build a dope community. I'm Jay Pats. Peace.